everyone to the first edition of the SDG Action Conclave 2020. And we are conducting today's session focusing on SDG Goal 4, Quality Education. To start off the session, let me tell you a bit about our organization, Youth Forum. So Youth Forum is a project under Alexis Society, and our team consists of inspired young students and professionals who are solely interested in creating social impact by conducting research on policy issues, writing thought-provoking and insightful blogs, designing creative social campaigns, organizing life-changing events, and interviewing leaders and change makers. As it is correctly said that the youth are not only leaders of tomorrow, but also partners of today. So we at Youth Forum, a team of creative and encouraging individuals with a shared mission, a mission to change the world. So, through this first edition of the SDG Action Conclave, we wish to bring together the change makers and the leaders from around the globe under the hashtag Act for SDGs campaign week of the United Nations. It will help to prepare an actionable agenda that will aid in achieving all the sustainable development goals through all stakeholder initiatives and more. While the world leaders meet virtually at the United Nations General Assembly to grapple the issues and give a solution to the tough times, we are trying to do a small bit by taking action and raising awareness and initiating a better direction ahead. The turning point of the planet and the people needs to be now. In this session, we have Nancy Conrad ma'am with us, who is the founding chairman of the Conrad Foundation. A former teacher, she has become a recognized leader in transformative education and has been named one of the top 100 leaders in STEM education, serving as a featured speaker at national and international conferences. Her presentations include TED, MIT, and the Global Competitiveness Forum in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. She also presented at the Global Diversity Leadership Conference at Harvard University and the National Modeling and Simulation Coalition Conference in Washington, D.C. Ma'am has also testified before the US House of Representatives Committee on Science, Space, and Technology, detailing how the Conrad Foundation exemplifies the use of partnership to improve STEM education. She is the wife of late astronaut Pete Conrad, who during the Apollo 12 mission became the third man to walk on the moon. Namaste, ma'am. Now, now, we also have with us the chair of the SDG Action Conclave 2020, Mr. Kunal Mandal, sir. Sir is the co-founder of Gyan Space, a gamification company which uses quizzes and other games as a tool for personal growth and people engagement, and citybitesindia.com, a travel portal which helps travelers discover and book inspiring city experiences provided by local experts. Currently, he is on a mission to teach curiosity as a life skill, increase awareness about sustainability, and empower young Indians to be more than they thought they could be. So now, I'd like to request Kunal sir to take the session forward.
Thank you so much, Sanjukta, and a very warm welcome to each and every one of you who is joining and listening in. I have a very, very special guest today with me, and I have Nancy Conrad. Nancy, a very warm welcome to you, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Kunal. My pleasure.
Nancy, I mean, if I have to ask my first question, then let me dive into something that I can't wait to ask you. I was doing a little bit of research and I found Pete's biography, which is Rocket Man, astronaut Pete Conrad's incredible ride to the moon and beyond.
Hi.
And I came across this line that Pete had said when he first landed on the moon. whoopee, man, that may have been a small one for Neil, but that's a long one for me.
Yeah.
And this line had a beautiful touch of humor, and while he described the fine excitement of making history with his third landing, what I want to know from you a little more about the man Pete Conrad and the legacy that he has left behind.
So Pete's comment on the moon was typical Pete Conrad. He was a funny guy. He was full of life. He went to the moon with his two best friends, and they had a ball. And the reason he said whoopee is because they had done a pinpoint landing on the moon, on the ocean of storms. Neil and Buzz were 4 miles from their landing site. It could have really spoiled their whole day. So NASA decided that they should land next to a surveyor that had been a vehicle sent to the lunar surface to take images of the moon prior to Pete's Apollo 12 flight. So when they got there and they start the descent, and there it is right there, that vehicle, that surveyor, he was just happy as a kid could be. And he's with his best friend, Alan Bean, and they're having a blast up there. So of course he said whoopee. Now the second part, that may have been a small one for Neil, et cetera, that was actually a bet. That was a bet with a very famous journalist who thought that all of the things that the astronauts said were made up by the United States government. And Pete said, absolutely not. And you and I will make up what I'm going to say. And then when I say it, you owe me $500. So he said it, and she never paid him the $500. So I don't know what that is worth in today's world. But that was part of Pete. He was just a fun-loving, happy-go-lucky character. And everybody loved Pete. You couldn't help but love Pete. He was fun, and he was warm, and he was gracious, and he was humble, and he was accomplished, and he was brilliant, and he had a twinkle in his eye. That was the rocket. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing that story. I mean, we got to know through your words and through your eyes, we got to know a little bit about him. Yeah. And of course, you started the Conrad Foundation after his untimely death, and it currently encourages the young adults to participate in designing the future. Right. And take up entrepreneurial roles and address the local and global challenges. Now, one of the things when I was looking at the work that your foundation is doing, I of course realized that you are trying to instill curiosity and the passion for innovation within these children of 13 to 18 years old. Yeah. And being someone who is also had the same mission in life, I just wanted to know from you that what is your framework and how are you trying to help these kids understand curiosity and instill that habit into them?
So we do something weird. Most of education is push. They push data, they push facts, they push information. We do pull. We ask these kids to take everything they know, get excited about creating something out of nothing, a product that is purpose-driven, that has an importance into the world, and to take everything they know, create a purpose-driven product that can help humanity and can help sustainability. And so we do pull education. So what that does, Kunal, is it engages the young people. I mean, otherwise we're just flat cardboard pieces sucking up information. I'm bored and asleep. And many of the teachers are too, by the way. But this has gotten so much excitement and energy around it. The kids own their product ideas. Some of them go on to patent. They own their patent. We don't own it. And they can do whatever they want with it. Most of them, I would say, have gone on to university. We work with a lot of different universities. And it turns out the credential as a Conrad Challenge Scholar is one of the top credentials for college admission. Kind of interesting, yeah? And we've turned out to be one of the top competitions in entrepreneurship, which I'm very proud. This is our 15th year. I cannot believe we're 15 years went. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So it's a whole different lens. It's focused on the student. It's focused on, when I testified in Congress, they asked me how we did this, and I said, well, I pay a lot of attention to the consumer. Well, who's the consumer? That would be the students, right? So that's what we do. And it's all about them. And P.S., it's really, really, really fun. And, you know, life has got to be, I mean, Pete Conrad was all about fun. He used to say that was the purpose of life. So I take that as my marching orders. And so I wanted to create something that was fit my passion for education and for learning through what I call pull education, and Pete's legacy, and put those pieces together. And that's really how the Conrad Challenge was born.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all have a responsibility to make education more fun, so that it's for everyone, is more participative and more engaging as well.
Once you're having a good time and you're participating in it, it's yours. You take ownership of it. It's like anything else that we do in the world. If someone just pushes you down a mountain, that's not a very fun ski trip, is it? But if you learn how to do it and you become part of the process, then you can have a really good day and you've had a great time and you understand process. So, you know, we've taken are you aware of the Next Generation Science Standards, the NGSS? Do you know about them? It's really about design.
Tell us a little bit.
Yeah, it's design thinking, and that's baked into what we do. That comes from the gentleman who mentored me as I created this project. I wanted to do high school. I was a high school teacher. And do you know Pete's story? Kunal, Pete got his moonshot in high school. Do you know this story?
Yes, that I've heard.
I'll share it with you. You want me to share the story? No?
Yeah, yes? Sure. That would be really nice. Yeah.
All right. So, and this is the other part of what went together when we created the Conrad Challenge. So Pete was a young man who was in a very prestigious school, and he had a problem reading and spelling, and they just didn't know what dyslexia was in those days, and they thought he was stupid, so they threw him out. And his mom took him to a little school in upstate New York where he had to repeat the 11th grade. He was learning how to fly at about the same time. And he got to that school, and the headmaster at the school saw something in this young man. I mean, he was really bright and with it, and, you know, snappity snap. And my theory is that because Pete was learning to fly at that time, he began to apply the principles for flying to his education. Do I know that that's true? No, that's my theory. So Pete began to excel. The educator takes the mentor's wing. Pete begins to excel, gets into honor roll. He gets admission to Princeton. Now, it could have just as easily been prison. He was a rowdy little boy. But here he is at Princeton. So he becomes an aeronautical engineer. There's two very good reasons for that, Kunal. He liked to fly, and he didn't have to read or spell. It was a perfect thing for him to be doing. He then became a test pilot, and then when President Kennedy wanted some guys to go to the moon, women didn't go to space in those days. Pete liked to fly. He didn't really care where he went. And so he ended up, his first flight was Gemini 5. It established that we could be in space for 8 days. And then he flew Gemini 11 with one of his best friends, another naval aviator. And that established rendezvous, which they had to establish that to go to the moon. Then he flew Apollo 12, which we just talked about. And then he flew Skylab, which was our first space station. And it was damaged at launch, and he rescued the lab. By the way, hanging on a tether in space, trying to pull a solar array apart, and it flew open, and he thought he was going to be the first arrow ever launched in space. Thankfully, the tether held down. The two guys were inside of the capsule holding it. I mean, this is so crazy. So for that, he was awarded a Congressional Space Medal of Honor. He then went on to work in the aerospace industry, and toward the end of his life, he was working on the next generation of vehicles, really the birthplace of commercialization and privatization of space. And so I look at what Branson, Musk, and Bezos do today, and most of it stands really on the shoulders of Pete Conrad and the crew of guys that worked with him on this DCX project that was amazing. 1999, he was killed in an accident, and when I came up for air, this is how I put his legacy and my passion together. Voila, there's the Conrad Challenge. So that's the story.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing how Conrad Challenge came to be. And
and you know what's interesting, Kunal? We started with 20 students. We are now all over the world. We're from Australia to Zimbabwe and everything in between. The students grabbed it, and it's just fascinating to me. Every year we launch our competition the end of August. We are in launch now, and if kids want to come in, they are so welcome. They form teams. There's a multiple categories. When you're doing innovation, you don't want a box, but you do want a framework. So we have categories. We work in aerospace, it's our legacy, energy and environment, cybersecurity, health. This year we're doing the plastics problem in oceans, and we also do smoke-free world. So we're looking, you know, space is smoke-free. We'd like to see Earth smoke-free. So it would save a lot of lives. So that's what we do, and the kids form teams. There's 2 to 5 in a team. They must have an adult. An adult is anyone over 18. And in this pandemic year, when school is sort of like nobody knows what's going on, what's interesting about our process is as long as it's an adult, it could be a parent, a teacher, an after-school person, a college student. Any adult can be the coach for the team of kids. And they come in from all over the world, and how they dream up the stuff they dream up, I have no idea. Well, I do, because we don't have a box. We don't say if you make this better, you win. We just say, hey, here's all the challenges. Let's figure out things in sustainability, products that are purpose-driven, that can do good for the world. And that's what they do. And every year I'm shocked and amazed at everything they do.
Yeah, I think it's just amazing when we find out, you know, if we just let curiosity flow, sometimes magic just comes out like that, as you said, that you never put them in a box and just let the curiosity flow, let it all happen.
You know, there's in the box thinking and there's out of the box thinking. We don't have a box. So we actually created a framework that helps students and teachers understand innovation and entrepreneurship. So we call it the No Box Toolbox. So it's a framework. It's kind of a map. It doesn't tell you where to go. You figure that out. But it gives you guideposts and things to learn along the way. That's been kind of fun.
Could you tell us a little more about the No Box Toolbox, like how you are doing it at the challenge?
Well, it's part of our competition, and I've been working for some years with one of the teachers. We've made him our head of professional development and education, and so he's sort of, that's his show. He runs that show, and it's service-driven, so all the kids are in there. They interact with each other. And let me explain to you what the competition does. It's a funneled competition. So all the kids come in, and it gets increasingly more difficult. And there's a back end with a rubric and judges. There are subject matter experts that the students can speak with. And by the time they get to the finals, they've written a full-on business plan, market study, and prototype. The prototype can be a drawing or an actual prototype. And we select our finalists. This year, because of the COVID, shall we say, we usually host our Innovation Summit at Kennedy Space Center, and kids come from everywhere, and it's an extraordinary event. This year we did it online, and I have to say, it was smashing. It was really stunning. We even had a dance party, and one of my directors showed up in a full disco outfit. I mean, it was really fun. And the kids were able to interact really in a great open format with the judges and with each other. We have an alumni organization. There's about 200 alumni that belong. We have an alumni leadership council that kind of runs that show. And they work with the new students as they come in to help familiarize them with the process and, you know, hints and ideas and such like that. So it's fun. It's a community. It's a family. It really is. We've kept it small on purpose because I like the intimacy of the Conrad Challenge and the Conrad family that everybody becomes as a result of this competition.
Glad to hear it, ma'am, and how you build the community and also give them that fun learning space where you can truly be themselves and freely innovate, and that's really great to hear.
And they stay with us, Kuno. I mean, some of these kids have competed in 2010. It was 10 years ago. They've just graduated, one from Stanford Business, one from Johns Hopkins, one from Harvard. They're all in different fields. One of them really got bitten by the venture bug. He got very involved in entrepreneurship. He's now working at a venture capital company. He created a company. They raised bunches of money and stuff. What it's really there to do, when you really peel the whole thing back, is it's really there to help you understand how to think and how to learn. Then you can do anything. You've got the genie in the bottle once you do that.
Yeah, I think with everything, every talk about artificial intelligence, I think it's equally important that our thinking abilities and the importance of human intelligence should also be taught as a skill in the future. And I'm glad that you are doing it through the challenge.
It's very hard to teach that. It almost comes in an intuitive, empathic way once you understand how the thing works. You know, it's like driving a car. When you first get in, it is so awkward and so weird. But then it just becomes intuitive and you can drive the car. You've learned how to drive. Well, if you learn how to learn, same deal. And then you've just got the magic. You can do anything. That's my belief.
So well put, ma'am. Learn how to learn and everything else will be sort of sorted.
It just follows. So. What else?
Yeah, I mean, of course, you told us about the challenge and the kind of innovations that are coming out of it. And I, sort of was going through some of them, and I saw this Michaela and Shannon Diaz, who won the Conrad Challenge, and they had developed these nutritious bars for the astronauts with the help from NASA's laboratory. Yeah. So I was just wondering if you could tell us, sort of similar stories of some examples of exemplary high schoolers who have already become change makers and doing wonderful.
If you ask me about an orchestra, it's so hard to pull out one musician and one, instrument and say, oh my God, that was the most amazing. Michaela and Shannon are part of our Alumni Leadership Council. And their nutrition bar met NASA standards, and it went to space on STS-134. And I think they're still developing that product. I'm not 100% certain. These kids, they've done everything from developing tools to find missing objects in International Space Station, to putting out forest fires using sound, to stopping hand tremors with a device that they created, not drugs, a device, to one of our kids out of Nigeria with his team created a technology to help farmers with tobacco and the banking system and all of that. And that young man got to speak on the floor at the UN, got a standing ovation. How about that? It's all over the place because there's no box. We just get these extraordinary things. Now, some of our kids get patents, and there are some patent awards for students, and we work with some very top legal firms that help our students with their patents. And as I've mentioned to you, Kunal, the kids own them, we don't own them. I don't want to be in that business, So I would say if someone's really interested, we have a YouTube channel under Conrad Challenge. There's a gazillion videos in there of things that students have done. And some of these students from India, by the way. We get quite a number of students from India, which is great. And they come to Summit. Now, I don't know what's going to happen this year. My guess is we will once again do a virtual summit. I'm not seeing, unless one of our kids develops the antidote to COVID, which they would probably do faster than any company, but just kidding. It'll probably be virtual again. I don't know. We'll have to see. We're going to decide on February 1st, but the competition's open now. So if kids want to enter in, now's a perfect time.
So all the young persons, especially school students who are listening in, please check out the Conrad Challenge website. We'll, of course, put out a link. And as she said, the contest is open, so you can participate. And do check out the YouTube videos for inspirations from other children and the great work that they have done.
There's some videos on our website, and there's a 7-minute video that really just gives you the heart and soul and feel of what we do. And it's quite special. Just because it's like my child or my children, so it's special.
Perfect. Now, ma'am, I'll go back to something that you said earlier, which is that I want to go to the consumers, and in this case, consumers are the students. Mm-hmm. And I can't there's some on your Twitter you had written once that what better audience to help solve our education issues than the consumers themselves, that is our students. Right. And while I understand this philosophy, but could you tell us a little bit about how students could be the solutions? Like anyone who is listening in, if you just tell them how, it would really help them.
Right. So, if you're, how do I explain this? So the stakeholder that's never at the table of education is the consumer. The consumer is the student. There's a group in this country called Student Voice. At one time I was on their board. I think that students have a voice. They just need to understand how to use their voice. When we're looking at what's going on in education now with this two-dimensional surface, teachers have been taught an old system. It's in this country, it's 200 years old. I don't know how old yours is, but ours is old. And it was made for a machine age when people were working on conveyor belts, so they just had to learn a little bit of stuff, and then off they could go into the job market in a factory. Well, as they say in the Wild Wild West, them days is over. And so, you got to keep up with today. What is today? Today is knowledge-based economy. Everything's moving fast. And the job you train for may be obsolete by the time you get to the workforce, right? So what you need to do is understand how to think and how to learn. I go back to that again. Now, kids, young people, students can take that opportunity to really expand their knowledge and their learning. Some of it's reading, some of it's listening. I listen to lectures all the time. I am constantly learning. And sometimes you have to take responsibility for your own education. I think one of the things that could be helpful is if teachers would learn improv. Do you know what improv is, yeah? So what happens is you're in this two-dimensional surface. And if I'm just telling you a bunch of facts, you're going to be sound asleep in your mind. You're going to be, forget about it. This is boring, right? But if I'm telling you stories and I'm asking you to participate in creating the story, now we're engaged with each other. So that's where I go to my pull education piece. I would love to see students invite teachers to tell stories and to do improv and to be engaging. And they can do that. Students can get a lot of what they want. They just have to ask. And most of the time they don't know they can ask, or they don't ask. We listen. So, and I think it's important in any country, in any school, whether it's a big school or a little hut of a school, your voice, it's your mind and your voice is all you have your whole complete life. And so not coming out angry and against something, but in constructive ways to help build consortia and collaboration. When we went to the moon, and they asked me this when I was interviewed, how did we do what we do at the Conrad Challenge? Well, we do something very strange. in the world of not-for-profits. It's really, really, really weird. We collaborate. Gee, what a concept. So when I started this, I thought, what's the best business plan I ever saw? How we got to the moon. What was that? It was leadership, me, funding. It used to be me. It outgrew me a long time ago. And I think my kids wanted to put me up for adoption. I'm spending their bread, right? So it was leadership, funding, government, industry, academia, and 400,000 people working together for a single goal, okay? So that's what I did. All those pieces, we work with government, industry, academia, and we collaborate. All over the world, we collaborate. And that has brought the students in. It has created this interactive framework that we work with, and we do a lot of listening. We listen to what our kids have to say, and we say at the end of the summit, so what do we need to improve? We do lots of surveys. We kind of really try to tune in to, in active ways, to what our students share with us. And we ask those questions. Now, most of the time in a classroom, you're not going to get that. They do their thing, they walk out, they give you the test, it's over. That's not education. So I think young people have to demand a better system.
Wow, thank you so much. I mean, there are quite a few interesting points you made, how students are one of the key components in the system and they have solutions most of the time, and we don't realize this half of the time. And I'll probably move on to another pillar of the same ecosystem, that are the teachers.
Yes.
Because they are also equally important in the same ecosystem. And the fact that for us to achieve the goal of quality education, we of course need highly qualified teachers.
Yeah, you can't have one without the other. If you have a great teacher and students who don't listen, it's deaf ears. If you have great kids and a terrible teacher, it's deaf ears. So it has to be that integration, just like when we went to the moon, the integration of all those pieces. Yeah.
And I mean, I wanted to ask you primarily that you have been a teacher yourself, and I just wanted to know that what ideas would you give us, that how do we produce more quality teachers who would then go on to build those students and more innovation into the ecosystem?
Not easy. I mean, Bill Gates tried to do that for a number of years, and it was a big goose egg. It's a really long, peeled back story, because you got to the center of that onion has to be a new way to train teachers. You know, you look at Finland. Finland's a small country. It's very government regulated. Teachers are extremely well paid. It's not even a question if a kid's getting a good education. But we're not all Finland. You know, India is a huge country. The United States is a huge country. Finland's a little tiny country. So I think we have to take a look at the way teachers are being taught. I strongly encourage improv. There's a person I know who teaches improv to scientists. You know, scientists have a really difficult time, other than Dr. Fauci, by the way, explaining complex scientific theories and experiments to lay people such as ourselves. Once they learn improv, and it's a system being taught to scientists right now, they have an ability to present. I would love to see that whole system go to teachers all over the world, because one, teachers would have a much better time. It's fun. Telling stories is fun. And two, kids would get more engaged in their education, because there would be a circle instead of a vertical. Yeah? So that's my theory, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, I mean, that's really nice you said, because even through my work, what I try to do is I try to develop these different gamified frameworks for learning, which the teachers can use. And most of the cases, whenever also I have interacted with teachers, one of the things that I hear is that kids get all the fun, but what about us? When we get the same sort of tools that are also fun for us to go and use and then inspire the students. So, and thank you so much for telling about your framework. You wanted to say something more, ma'am?
No, I think that the passion for learning comes at a very young age, and you have to ignite that passion. I mean, that's what happened for Pete. No one had, and I look back at what happened for Pete, and it also happened for me. Somebody has to take you under their wing, whether it's a parent, a grandparent, an uncle, a friend, a college student. We have to have support systems. We're all lonely little creatures hanging out on this planet just trying to survive, right? And when someone believes in you, which is what we do at the Conrad Challenge, we believe in these kids. When someone believes in you, you step up. You want to be better. You want to be good. And, it's when people criticize you, it minimizes you. It makes you feel bad. It hurts and it's painful and it's an emotional. It's a bad emotion to feel less and small and sad. So I love that feeling of support, of a girding of a young person that brings them into a whole community of young people that support each other and care about each other and continue to work with each other throughout the years. It's really quite extraordinary. I don't really know of another, well, there probably are, I just don't know of any. And certainly no one does it as well as we do. Of course not. Yeah.
Thank you so much, and clearly says that you have built a community of believers, and it's so important for us to do that. That once we start believing in people and empowering them with the right set of framework and tool, then of course the things will happen.
You know what else is really important, Kuno? We have students that work across countries, across states, across cities, across socioeconomic, across genders. So I believe that Gen Z, which is 13 to 18, they see the world the way the astronauts did. No borders, no boundaries. These kids live on the internet and it's all wide open. And I can work with you on a team and we can put together all sorts of things because it doesn't matter where you are. We're all connected, right? So that part of the work that we do is where education can start to become diplomacy. Peace could break out. You never know, because kids get along with each other. It's stunning to watch that. Yeah. So that's the big hope. That's something that you can play with, actually.
I totally resonate with that, because whenever I have attended global meets, including SDG Summit and other places that I have been, when I meet people my age in the young fraternity, and when we get together, it just seems that border is such a very little thing that exists between us, that we have to take this thing, and we have so much fun working together and probably sort of thinking for a better world, and that's really amazing. You are also supporting that idea. I'm glad. Thank you for that.
Fan of that, and I feel as though the work we've done over the last 15 years has really united kids from all over the world. They're still buddies. They still hang out. They still get on Zoom calls, and they still work with our young new students that come into the competition. It's really important. This is really the dream catcher, if you will, of what education can do when it's done in passionate ways where kids are really engaged and really involved.
So now I have a tougher question in the same context, because when we say that borderless world and education and its outreach through collaboration, one of the things that I can't sort of ignore is the fact that the world is going through numerous kind of conflicts, and we are witnessing mass migrations and sort of social and political conflicts, civil wars, and so many other things. And if we have to look at UNICEF data, close to 31 million of displaced people are children.
Yeah.
And keeping this in mind, one question that of course comes is the universal access of education. We are privileged to have had the opportunity. How do we take these models and take these beautiful ideas to more and more people where they actually need it more than probably us? Because education, as you said, uplifts everything else.
Yeah.
So what are your ideas on that?
So, there are people right now working on worldwide satellite systems so that the downlinks for World Wide Web will really happen. Getting a phone or whatever in today's world is not that big of a deal. I think, this shot at doing worldwide internet actually started in the early 90s with Craig McCaw and Bill Gates. It was a company called Teledesic. They were going to launch 280 satellites. I don't know if you remember this. Anybody who could spell space was in the space business because everybody wanted to take up the satellites and download the comm and all that kind of stuff. It's actually happening now. So the future is running a little late. It's okay. It's coming. And I think that, I've seen people in the Masai Masa with cell phones. Yeah. And it's coming. Patience is not humanity's strong suit. I'm not very patient at all. But I do believe that within the next year or so, we are going to see a mass coming. UNICEF is measuring the spots where there's coverage and there's darkness and all of that. So I think as we begin to know where these spots are lighting up and we can bring internet, that's all we have to bring. You don't need a classroom. You can do all of this like we're talking right now. Isn't that incredible? And we're going to be able to do it in VR pretty soon. And we're going to be able to do AI and all kinds of things. So I think we're just on the precipice. And I think that this horrible time that we're living through, it's really actually pretty biblical when you think about it. You go back, so when the Renaissance happened, they had a huge plague. They were having wars like crazy. And the Medici rose up. And art became alive, and that became currency. You traded art, and my hope is, and I'm working on these things, I'm not just talking about them, and in fact, Kunal Sood and I are working on them together with groups of other people, working on ways where we can actually have our own renaissance, come out of this horrible nightmare that's like, back to pestilence, rodents, rats, frogs, vermin, locusts, all that stuff that came out of the Bible, and come out of it in a new appreciation for each other, for life, less war, more care for each other. Because when you really look at this COVID, we are all responsible for each other's lives. We just have to wear a mask, and then I'm not going to infect you, and you're not going to infect me. So we've really become interdependent, yeah? Not codependent, interdependent. And if we take a look at that and we recognize the beauty of how we can become a circle instead of a vertical, and world leaders can once again start working together to save humanity. There's a couple million people that are dead, for God's sake. It's horrible. These are parents. Your grandparents, their children. It's a horrible thing. Can we take that experience and may we be the future that we want to be? And can we co-create that together? That's the opportunity.
Wow, that's really fascinating that you said that, how do we co-create the future, and the interdependence is now more important than ever. So
our lives depend on it. Our very lives depend on it.
Great. And, I hope that we are able to take the better half of the education to everyone in the world through our co-creation abilities. One thing that comes to my mind, you mentioned, of course, virtual reality and the new ways of looking at, taking the school to more and more children. But one of the sub-targets of this goal is also to build better schools, safe learning environments, resilient and safe learning environments, and also inclusive learning environments. And this is one of the challenges that world faces, that despite of so many programs, we haven't been able to build enough schools. And even if we have built a school, even in my own country, I've seen that there is no infrastructure, there is lack of facilities, lack of teachers and everything else, right? So how do you think we can probably, I would say, upgrade the schools, or what, according to you, would the future school look like?
There may not even be a school. Yeah. Maybe we don't need brick and mortar anymore. Look what we're doing right now. We're talking across the world as though we're sitting next door to each other. What if you had an awesome there's a university in this country that's doing this. Everything is online. There are more than one university. What if we had like 100 from K through 12 and then some university, like top educators, and kids could listen on their time zones from all over the world and come into virtual rooms with each other. And now what's missing out of that is play. Kids have to play and they have to socialize. So maybe schools just become playgrounds. I don't know. I haven't figured all that out yet, but it feels to me like we're in the precipice of a new opportunity for the way young people can learn. I don't think it's going to be just a classroom anymore. I think it's going to be far more intersected with technologies, and the technologies are expanding almost daily. So I think we're at the very beginning stages, maybe of a renaissance in education and a new way for young people to learn that may or may not involve a schoolhouse. Yeah? It may be that learning becomes clubs. You know, you have your Aero Club and your Ocean Club and your whatever, your veterinarian clubs and whatever. And kids that come together that want to learn specific. I don't know, and I probably won't live long enough to see it happen, but I suspect that's where the future's going. Yeah, I really do. I don't know.
That's fantastic.
What it will do, Kunal, it will democratize education. Because you won't see kids in far-off classrooms without facilities and kids in fancy schools. They'll all be together on the internet.
Yes.
That's going to be interesting.
And everybody would be able to get an MIT education, and wouldn't that be wonderful?
Well,
And
you can actually do that now. You can get an MIT education on the internet.
They have open courseware and MOOCs.
They're all there. I think that on the university level, you know, those are still quite expensive. I think when you start looking at K-12, I just have a sensation that will all get very democratized and very layered, probably be available in multiple languages. I don't know. It's going to be fun to watch, and you're going to get to see it. You'll have to let me know.
Perfect. And I hope that we can also collaborate with Conrad Foundation to do make some of these possible as well in our lifetime, for sure. And of course, we talked about various aspects. The one aspect that I'll come to now is the learning part of it, the curriculum itself. That what are we going to teach? Because we talked about students, we talked about teachers, we talked about access to education. We also talked about schools and their models. But what still remains at large is that we still have to teach them something, and they have to learn something.
Absolutely.
And that something is always very much debated and questioned, because, as you said, it's like 200 years old, and we haven't moved away from the industrial age education at all. And finally, we recently had a new education policy in India, which just got announced. And of course, it hasn't started getting implemented, but it has just been announced, and we hope that, and there are lots of interesting things there as well. So what my question to you that I want to put forward is, what is the purpose of education according to you? And secondly, that if you have to give us some blueprint of what should be taught, I would love to know that from you.
What we haven't done and what we must do is we must align our education system with our needs for workforce. Otherwise, we've got tracks going in different directions. We've never done that. And clear back in the day when education first began 200 years ago, yes, but it's not lined up now. So you've got a bunch of kids learning stuff that's antiquated and absurd and, has no value whatsoever, particularly as it relates to workforce. That's one piece that I think needs to happen. And, we're in a knowledge-based economy worldwide, yeah? So let's focus on learning how that works and what those pieces are so that we can sustain our knowledge-based economy. Now, whether it's in a classroom or on the internet, I don't think it much matters. Having said that, I have, the old model is the sage on the stage and the complacent kid sitting there, sucking up information. That's dead. And it still goes on. Some of it's on the internet. It's not interactive. That really does not light my candle. I like the circle of learning, not the vertical learning. And so if I were able to just wave a wand, I would create a whole system of interactive conversational learning, storytelling, and improv that could go out across the world. Ha. Now there's something for me to do, huh? That's what I would do. And I would bring really top teachers, not necessarily professors, but some people who have lived lives that are extraordinary, that you never heard of, that have things to share with young people. And if I just find a little bit of money, I'm going to do that on our website this year. We'll see what happens. But there's so much wonderful wonderment about the world. And it's a joy to learn. And a lot of kids don't know about that joy because they've been pushed. So, yeah, I like the joy juice.
Okay, I think Sangyukta has just dropped off, so I'll just wait for her to join back.
Okay.
I think, of course, one of the things that you said, I am really, really taken up this mission in my life to teach curiosity as a life skill, because
So
I think that.
Are you familiar with Sir Ken Robinson's teachings?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you, ma'am, properly. Could you repeat the name?
Sir Ken Robinson?
Oh, yes, of course. He is unfortunately, I know we lost him.
Right, I know. He was a type of curiosity, wasn't he?
Yes, he's a true inspiration.
Yeah,
and I think the part where you said that joy of learning, if only that we could take to more and more children, that would solve all our problems.
And not just in terms of product and productivity, but the social emotional piece, because it's very, when kids are engaged in their learning, they're invited to understand leadership, collaboration, cooperation, communication. And that's all kind of packed in together when you're co-creating products together. You got to do that stuff, working in teams. I just look at what the opportunity is right now for the world to really rethink itself and redesign this whole system. It's a huge opportunity. Now, what will happen, I don't know. If we all go back and put our heads in the sand and moan and groan about how horrible it is, we'll just end up where we are right now. God, that would be such a waste, wouldn't it? Yeah.
It would be, and with hope that the work that you are doing and all of us are trying to do, hopefully with that we'll be able to raise enough awareness for that not to happen. On that note, I will bring a young voice into the interview, and I have Sangyukta with me, who is a young student from India, and she's also part of our global volunteer team, and she has a couple of questions for you. So Sangyukta, please introduce yourself and ask your question.
Thank you, sir. So, ma'am, it was very insightful, and I really am inspired by your views about education and how it needs to reach everyone. So, talking about myself, my name is Sangyupta Das, and I'm pursuing undergraduate studies in economics from Delhi University. And I am equally passionate about all the goals, but then education is something I deeply care about, and it is that thing that it makes other things possible. So basically, education is behind all the professions, in fact. So, my first question to you is that I am someone who had the privilege of attending higher education until this point, but there are similar girls of my age who have been denied this access, maybe not only because of where they live, but also because of many stereotypical notions and many societal rules, especially in a country like India and many other developing countries. We have seen such cases of girls where they are denied this voice, and thus they lose the access to education. So, as a youth, how do you think, how shall I be able to give this voice to them and, contribute to this goal of quality education and make it a success?
For girls?
Yes, specifically girls, because that's where the lag comes in for many developing nations, I'll say.
It's a difficult question. What's fascinating to me, and I'd just be able to answer this out of my own experience. So when we host our competition, we will get maybe 42, 43%, 45% boys, 50% boys, maybe 60%. But when it comes to the finals, 51% are girls. Now I have a theory about that. My theory is that girls are far more engaged in purpose-driven entrepreneurship and innovation than perhaps boys are. We're nurturers. We care about humanity. We care about each other. So maybe take that data point of the purpose-driven education and integrate that into the work that you do, and perhaps more girls will come around. I grew up in the era of women's lib. So, the women were burning bras and marching down the street and all that kind of stuff. I never saw it. I never saw any problem against women because I just kept moving forward. And sometimes if you just keep going and you don't let obstacles get in your way, they don't. I realize it's difficult, and I realize that's a little bit Pollyanna, but I sometimes feel like if we give up and give in, it's over. So you have to keep moving. And because you're a woman, and because you're accomplished, and because you're smart, you have a responsibility to your fellow women to bring them along. So whatever you can do as a guide for them, I'm old enough now where I can mentor young women. You'll get there, believe me. So I mentor 3 young women. And one of them I've mentored for about 10 years. And it's unbelievable what can happen just because somebody cares about. It's going back to that thing I said in the first place. When someone takes you under their wing and believes in you, you're capable of everything. So take other women under your wing. Yeah?
Yeah. Thank you so much. So I have one more question for you. So what can be the 3 specific steps that I can take at present in light of this goal and to take it forward?
Find a young woman that you can mentor. Find a woman who will mentor you. Because what you'll find out is it's a circle. It isn't vertical. So that's 2 things. Well, maybe it's 3 because you got to find an older woman, find a younger woman. You're going to mentor, you're going to be mentored, and that's 3. Yeah? So that's a circle.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay. And you know what? Teach what you've learned and learn what you will need to teach. Does that make sense? Okay. So I'll just share a quick story. I was giving a speech for NASA in San Francisco years ago, and I brought my mentee, one of my mentees with me. And I'm standing there doing my blah, blah, blah. And the room is filled with young women and then women my age. And so I said, well, I've actually brought my mentor with me. And I asked her to stand up. She was about 25 at the time. Beautiful girl. And I said, this is my mentor. I said, you see, it is not vertical. It is a circle. I learn as much from her as she learns from me. So you'll do the same thing.
Okay, yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Sangrupta, for your questions, and thank you, Nancy, for taking the time out and talking to us.
My pleasure.
For everyone who is listening in, if I have to sum up, there's so many insights in this conversation. It's very difficult, but I'll try my best. First of all, build a product that is purpose-driven. And Nancy, congratulations on 15th anniversary of Conrad Challenge. I mean, I look forward to that more and more students take part and take the system forward. And one of the messages that she had for all of you young listeners is that learn how to learn and understand how to think. And another thing that I probably is my biggest takeaway is that if we have to create our own renaissance, we must appreciate each other and probably build an interactive conversational learning ecosystem along with a community of believers.
Yeah.
On that note, I would like to conclude the session, but before I conclude, since I'm a quiz master, I never run out of questions. And there is one last question that I have for you, Nancy, is that if you had to sum up your vision for a better world in one sentence, what would that be?
I'll just give you one word. You ready? It's a 4-letter word. The word is hope.
Great. On that hopeful note, everyone who is joining in and listening in, thank you so much. And thank you, Nancy, for being here with us. Remember, for a world where no one is left behind, it has never been clearer that all of us have a role to play in order to bring about change. Whoever you are, no matter where you come from, every one of us can make a difference. Every action truly counts. Get involved, attend the SDG Action Conclave 2020, participate in the SDG quiz, help raise awareness about the goals, and connect with a global community of passionate volunteers. This Global Goals Week, let us all come together to spread the knowledge about people, planet, and our sustainable development goals. Thank you all once again for joining us. Follow us on Instagram at Youth Forum India for all the updates, and don't forget to join our next session.